G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/legal advice. Now if you're like me and you have no idea what the law says, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, leave a like, and get ready for some bloody good content. Posted by user Middlemite, titled, Texas, is it illegal to pretend to offer someone a job in the hopes to make them unemployed? This all happened a week ago, and I have found other employment, so that answers the question everyone's going to ask. Guy who used to work with us a few years ago left on very good terms. He got his MBA and went on to another company at a salary requisite to his skill level. Today he comes back for an interview at the company for an AVP position that is a small step up for him. Everything went well in the interview and everyone was on board. Problem is that the EVP said he is not going to give him the position. He's going to lead him on and make him think he has a job until he hands in his 2 weeks at his current position. Then my EVP is just going to pull the job offer with some bullcrap excuse. When I asked him why he would do this, he said the most important lesson I can learn in life is loyalty. Stay loyal or never come back. Yeah, I went ahead and warned the guy about it and told him not to put in his 2 weeks notice. He wants to go ahead and go along with this whole charade just to see how far the EVP will go. My question is this in any way illegal? I know that a company can pull their rug from under you in a million completely legal ways, but if there is proof that it was malicious, what can be done? Thinking about going to HR with this, then a lawyer if they don't do anything about it. Either way, I will never work at a company he works at again. Does this EVP have a boss? This is ripe for promissory estoppel / detrimental reliance. With an affidavit and testimony form, you, the candidate, has a case if he puts in his notice and loses his job. Screw that guy with a rusty railroad spike. What an absolute arse. If you have an independent HR team, a compliance hotline, or a general counsel, now might be the time. Also, anyone who's so focused on loyalty that they're willing to pull this is almost certainly going to regard you wanting the guy as disloyalty, and he'll definitely regard you testifying / going to the HR / notifying general counsel as disloyalty. And he's obviously dumb enough to ignore minor issues like legality. So be prepared for retaliation. CYA, document everything, and be prepared to give him another rusty railroad spike after he fires you for snitching. Already have a new job, as does half of the staff under him. Just for clarification, there is no legal case until someone suffers actual financial damages. Going along with it to expose the practice isn't necessarily enough, unless the candidate genuinely loses current job and didn't know about the fraud in advance. However, litigation is always expensive for companies, and the senior executive management team may want to address this practice, just from a risk management / mitigation perspective, given that you have a new job and you might not care. Plus, if the candidate goes along with it and loses their current job knowing about the EVP's intentions, that may impact their legal outcomes. Promissory estoppel and detrimental reliance are both equitable, and some courts are quite reticent to give equitable relief where a plaintiff seems to have contributed to the result. Unclean hands, even if they didn't do anything particularly wrong. I can't speak for Texas specifically though. Playing along to document the practice for the EVP's superiors is completely fine, of course. Just best not to resign in the process. My brain checked out about halfway through that, so I don't have anything to say about that. Besides being a terrible business practice, offering someone an offer that you know isn't real in the hopes of causing them financial harm could be considered fraud. There is no gain here for the EVP. At most, this falls into the land of detrimental reliance, except the friend knows about the plot now and is willingly going into the fire. De Dienda says, gain is not an element of fraud. The guy's knowledge of the plot can eliminate the actual and justified reliance element though. In order to prove fraud, a plaintiff must show that 1. The defendant made a material representation that was false. 2. The defendant knew the representation was false or made it recklessly as a positive assertion without any knowledge of its truth. 3. The defendant intended to induce a plaintiff to act upon the representation, and 4. The plaintiff actually and justifiably relied on the representation, which caused the injury. Very interesting stuff. Savage Ark says, it isn't illegal, but you can sue over it if you made substantial life changes, like quitting your current job, moving, etc., in order to accommodate a job offer. Comedy option, intentional infliction of emotional distress. And last one, lawyer here, not in Texas and not in employment, although maybe contract, attorney either. But this is a great way to get your ass sued, like home run, do not pass go, winner winner chicken dinner. Am I mixing these up? It literally checks all boxes. Illegal is a strong term. No one goes to jail for this, but you get sued. And a smart company will fire someone who acts like this, indicates immaturity, pettiness, and an inability to separate work and personal. Again, this isn't really legal advice. And yeah, like some comments are saying after this, if he signs a letter of employment, can't they not do this to him and like he will get sued for doing that? Just seems stupid, but okay. Update, D-bag boss wanted to screw over a former employee with a fake job offer. Went to HR this morning and played the audio from the phone call. I also pulled the emails between me and the EVP and handed them over to HR. The chief personnel officer pulled me into his office and made me play everything for him. I told him the full story of everything about the former employee and the EVP's attitude. To make him completely understand that I would not let this get buried, I told him that the former employee knows the whole thing. Said that I plan to leave at the end of the week if the EVP situation does not get handled. Did not tell him about the new job. The CPO thanks me for my honesty, which by the way was a major red flag for me, and said that he would be contacting the COO immediately. At lunch, I was pulled into a meeting with a junior HR person to talk about my performance review. We do not have performance reviews. It went badly. I was given 5 minutes to pack up my things at my desk and leave. I had had an email typed up on my phone and sent it to the CEO detailing everything. I had typed it up as things happened and pretty much knew I would be cut today. Luckily, my access had not been cut yet as I received the CC to my personal email back almost immediately. It received a one-sentence response of, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention." So all in all, I'm pretty sure they will not do anything, they just do not realize how many people are leaving with no notice Friday. A large number of people know. Oof, that doesn't sound good, but hey, what can you do in this situation? It's a bit of a tease ending, I'll admit, but I like it. I like that ending. Good, screw that job. Posted by user Throw Legal Advice Dogs 29291, titled, "Neighbors entrusted me with looking after their pets and house for 3 weeks. It has been almost a year now, and they haven't come back. Today their basement flooded and I have no idea what to do. In June 2019, my neighbors came to my door. I had some experiences with them. They invited us for a barbecue not long after they moved in. They asked me and my wife if we would look after their pets and their house for the next 3 weeks, as they needed to return to Taiwan as his mother was dying. They even left me $500 for food for their 2 German shepherds and their cat. I don't know what happened to them, but they just never came back. I don't know if they ended up in some sort of prison or just decided not to come home at all. Today I found out their basement had flooded, probably sometime within the last week. Apparently a pipe burst, but the entire basement is completely screwed. I paid to have the leak fixed, and I spent all of today using my shop vac to drain their basement to the best of my abilities. Between this and one of their dogs needing surgery, I have spent several thousand of my own dollars, and frankly, the damage to the basement was pretty awful. I don't have their insurance paperwork, and I don't really know if I can even do a claim for them. On top of this, his 2 giant German shepherds, while they're amazingly good boys, it is becoming almost too much for us to handle. Their last name was extremely common, and their Facebook profiles are private, which gives me very little avenue to tackle this down. Timeline: June 7th, 2019. Neighbors asked me if I would look after their pets and their house while they were handling the death of his mother back in Taiwan. Told me 3 weeks at latest. July 1st, 2019. Neighbors sent me an email stating they needed some additional time to handle his father's affairs. He apologized and said he would be back by July 15th at latest. July 21st, 2019, sent him an email asking what was going on, explained how we were going on vacation in August, never got a response. July 31st, 2019, tried calling him on his cell phone. The number he was given to me was no longer in service. August 14th, 2019, went on vacation, had my brother look after all 4 dogs for the next week. September 2nd, 2019, emailed him again, no response. September 3rd, 2019, tried to reach him and his wife via Facebook using the private message feature. September 6th, 2019, ended up moving his 2 dogs, 1 cat, into our house as they seemed extremely miserable. I ended up disassembling part of our adjoined fence to allow his dogs to use their outside area. November 19th, 2019. One of his dogs started showing signs of being ill. Brought him to the vet. Turns out he is suffering from a medium severity case of IVDD. He ended up requiring surgery, which we paid for. January 21st, 2020. Sent another email and never got a response. Today, when I was bringing his mail to his house, I noticed it smelled pretty awful, and I noticed his basement had about a foot of water in it. Questions. What exactly is my level of responsibility in this? I agreed to look after it for a few weeks/couple of months at the most. It has almost been a year now. Is there anything I can do? Location, Ontario, Canada. Oh my god, of course it's in Ontario, Canada. Sorry, some other points. I am assuming they have some sort of auto payment for bills set up, because they still have hydro cable and internet. I am unsure where exactly the husband worked. I know he said he was an engineer, however I cannot find his LinkedIn profile, so I don't know what company. Their last name is a very common name, common like Wong, which gives me tons of Facebook results. Report the people missing. Right? My initial thought when they said they were emailed that they needed a bit more time, then they went AWOL, made me wonder if they died. If they had no intention of returning, they could have just said something like, "Something came up and we can't come back. Please keep or find a home for my pets." Especially if they own a house there. Why wouldn't they hire someone to sell it if they weren't returning? Exactly. And even if by some freakish turn of events, they were wealthy enough that they would just up and leave a property, they certainly wouldn't keep paying to keep the utilities on. I'm surprised that this is the only comment here saying this. It might be abandonment, but it could also be that something happened and they're dead or stranded in Asia. I would also add that, if there is no one in the home, it would be prudent to go ahead and shut off the main water and, weather permitting, gas valves. This would eliminate any chance of future leaks and possibly worse. Property tax records would have their full names, assuming they own. You should contact the police and tell them what's going on. I know their full names. It is just that their last name is extremely common and their Facebook profile is private, so I have no idea who's related to them. I'll contact the police tomorrow. Thanks. Contact the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Canada. That is their embassy. They can find out what happened. It would be a good idea to talk with the lawyer. Give him the lowdown on what's going on. Do you want to be able to cover all your bases so they possibly can't turn around and sue you for something or other? Do you know any kind of lawyer I should be looking for? Can I recommend you contact the dog's breeder before the authorities? Once you start that particular ball rolling, the dogs may enter some weird limbo or possibly even be taken by animal control, simply as a matter of practice. Hopefully not, but you never know. As has been said, any good breeder will take these dogs back pronto, and that will almost certainly have been stipulated in a contract. My owner's dog breeder tells a story about the 9-year-old dog she took back after the owner died and the spouse simply didn't want him anymore. But I'd research that breeder online and then reach out to them. Breeders can be amazingly resourceful anyway. Good ones, and you seem to care about these dogs. By the way, you seem like a very good egg. Those dogs are lucky to have you. And this is the last comment thread of advice I'm going to read. You have no responsibility for the house, so ignore that for the moment. You have no legal responsibility for the pets, but I'm assuming you are attached to them, so don't want to turn them over to the animal control. I have to say that you sound like the neighbor from heaven, but your only responsibility in this situation is to actively avoid causing harm. You don't have to do anything to fix the house or even mitigate damages. In my view, the only thing you need to do is consider how to handle the animals that have been foisted upon you, and that's it. I will be honest, I love his dogs. However, they are two massive German Shepherds who were never trained. They are extremely high maintenance animals. Both me and my wife have full-time jobs, while thanks to COVID we can work from home more often. Just taking care of them is becoming almost too much. We have two smaller dogs, a Corgi and Jack Russell, who do not really get along well with them. If I was to turn them to the animal control, would that be possible? If you want to do right by the dogs, look for a breed-specific rescue in your area. Far better outcomes than just generally turning them in. Thanks, that is actually a great idea. I know what breeder they got their dogs from, as it's on the fridge. Return them to the breeder will find them a loving home. No good breeder wants the dogs they produce to end up in a shelter or rescue. And I think that's all really good advice, honestly. I think they should take that advice and run with it. And now for the heavily rewarded post of the update to that story. Good news. I followed everyone's advice, reached out to the police and the embassy, explained the situation, and gave them a bunch of information. Tonight, I got a phone call from them, explaining they just decided to stay much longer and spend times with family and friends. They apparently asked his wife's brother to come and collect the animals and get the key a long time ago back in August, but never followed up on it. He apologized and said he was sorry. He gave me two options, and asked if I wanted to keep his pets since I've had them for so long, or he will push his stepbrother to get the animals. Apparently, the animals don't really mean anything to him or his wife, which I feel is quite crappy. He apparently can no longer access his email and passed me along a new email address and phone number I can use to contact him, but told me he doesn't have plans to return to Canada anytime soon. I mentioned the water damage and he said they can just buy a new house or get it fixed when they get back. He was also quite confused and somewhat annoyed about the lengths we went to get in touch with him. He didn't understand why we reached out to the embassy. He then offered to send me a bunch of money to square away the inconvenience, and that was more or less it. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. However, I feel kind of ticked off at how little he and his wife seem to care about the pets and his house. Anyways, me and my wife are going to keep the pets simply because, well, I don't think either of us can part with the dogs and his cat at this point. Oh, that's a really good ending to this one, I liked that. Posted by user MetroDZS, titled Maryland, taken by EMTs against my will. I was out at the bars on Thursday night in College Park, MD. It's probably Maryland, isn't it? Apparently, I had a bit too much to drink and don't remember anything that happened that night, but I do remember waking up in hospital the next morning. Apparently, a video was taken of me, which I now have a copy of. In the video, you can see me lying on the ground in the parking lot next to the bar surrounded by cops and EMTs. In the video, you can see the EMTs kneeling down next to me and asking me questions, and you can clearly hear my yelling at them to leave me alone and don't touch me. They ask me if I want to go to the hospital, and in the video, I yell that I do not want to go and that they need to leave me alone. They keep asking me questions while I keep telling them to get away from me until they ultimately decided to load me into the stretcher by force and take me to the hospital against my will. I want to sue the Prince George's County Fire Department, the College Park Volunteer Fire Department, Inc., the individual EMTs who took me against my will, and the person who filmed me. The problem is, I don't know the names or the identities of those individuals. I called the College Park Fire Department to ask about it, and they basically stonewalled me, and told me to call the Prince George's County Fire Department's Office of Public Information, which I did, and they only stonewalled me further and wouldn't disclose the information I need. How do I force the fire department to disclose the identities of the individuals who violated my rights? Edit. I now see that posting here was a mistake. You guys aren't very helpful in any event. I still fully intend to sue. Oof. Oh my god. You have nothing to sue over. You were so intoxicated that you were a danger to yourself. Your consent is not needed in that situation. Your consent is never needed to film you in public. They charged me for a service I tried to refuse. You voluntarily rendered yourself incapacitated. Medical treatment is under implied consent if you are unconscious or otherwise so intoxicated that you cannot make your decisions. Voluntary versus involuntary doesn't matter with implied consent. OP could have been slipped something, and he still wouldn't have been able to refuse transport. Voluntary does impact financial responsibility if he had been drugged against his will or without his knowledge that that person would be liable for his costs, although he would still ultimately owe the medical provider. That's called an implied contract. A reasonable person who is in need of emergency care is presumed to be reasonable enough to not refuse. In this case, the reasonable person is you in a sober state. What you said while drunk is irrelevant. I'm not judging you, but the way the law sees it, it doesn't matter if sober you still thinks they should have left you there. The law is concerned with what a reasonable person would do, and a court will be happy to conclude that sober you is not a reasonable person. Oh my god. If a judge finds the testimony of the officers and EMTs to establish that there was a substantial chance of you suffering irreparable harm while in that state, then the judge will likely conclude that their treatment of you was lawful. Why didn't you just get up and leave the parking area before they took you? Because he was blackout wasted and probably was unable to do that. Exactly my point. Sorry, some stuff is going to repeat, but it's good to just drill this lesson in. You are blackout drunk. You cannot refuse medical treatment when you are that drunk. And you sure as crap can't sue someone for filming a drunken idiot in public. They cannot take me against my will. I was not under arrest. And they have the audacity to charge me $500 for a service I didn't want and even refused. Yes, they can do all of those things. Not only are they allowed to do that, but once you get to the hospital, they are allowed to physically restrain you and chemically sedate you if they believe your behavior is a danger to yourself or others, and they'll charge you for that too. Medicare, I do what they did to you at least once per 10-hour shift, usually more. Have yet to be sued over it. My advice is let this be a lesson learned. Don't drink to incapacity. Believe it or not, people do die of alcohol poisoning, or by choking on their own vomit. And now, update. Maryland, taken by EMTs against my will. For those of you who may remember me from a while back, and for those of you who read my original post just now, you're probably wondering why I'm bothering to post this update in the first place. I'll get into that later. But the short answer is that I believe the responses I received to, and the subsequent consequences of, my original post here, played an important role in causing me to do a serious amount of self-reflection, which resulted in me making serious positive changes to my life. I suppose you could even call this update a thank you of sorts. Anyways, on to what actually happened after my original post 8 months ago. As my edit to the original post implied, I did not get what I want from the original post. What I wanted was a bunch of people to tell me what I wanted to hear and to provide an escape from the consequences of my own reckless behavior. What I got was a whole lot of people reminding me that there was no one to blame but myself and that I had to face the consequences of my actions. Naturally, I refused to accept this and went ahead and consulted a lawyer. I say consulted for the lack of a better word, as it was more like said lawyer showed me the door shortly after I pleaded my case. This, however, did not deter me. If anything, it only invigorated me further. I decided on pro se representation. The first step was, of course, collecting evidence. And by collecting evidence, I of course mean showing up to the fire station that housed the ambulance that picked me up drunk and demanded the information I wanted. Luckily, this was at approximately 3 a.m., and only one firefighter was awake at the station at the time. I suppose I should count myself extremely lucky, as he did not immediately call the cops on me, but instead sat there patiently and listened to me as I screamed unintelligible nonsense at him, even offered to give me a ride home using the department's utility truck. Needless to say, I did not acquire the information I sought out, so I returned home and passed out. When I woke up to a crap storm. The original post I had made here had apparently been cross-posted to another subreddit, which somehow led to me being doxxed and humiliated by almost everyone who knew me. Even my boss laughed at me. Suppose I should be grateful that I wasn't fired. In any event, the humiliation led to me taking a step back and looking into my life with an outside perspective. I hated what I saw. I hated it so much that I swore to myself that I would change, and somehow I did. Sort of. I never actually ended up filing anything with any sort of court. Good thing too. Would only have served to waste my money and humiliated me further. I came to the conclusion that I was a functioning alcoholic. A few months ago, I began to try the Alcoholics Anonymous route. It was hard, and I released a few times. But as of posting this update, I am over a month clean. I don't really want to get into the details of my recovery, but needless to say, the slap in the face I got from the doxing of the post I originally made here really helped me out. I won't bore you guys with the details of how I proceeded to clean up my life after that, but I consider myself a seriously different person than I was 8 months ago. And it's all due to a chain of events that was born from the original post I made to this subreddit, and for that, I'd like to thank you guys. I suppose I don't have a single reason for actually posting this update, but I hope you guys know that your advice does help people, even if it may not be in the way originally intended. I'd always like this story to be an example for others in situations similar to mine. Really makes true the old saying that if everyone else at the table tells you that you're drunk, then you probably are. Yeah, that was beautiful. That was really well written, 96% upvoted, very good audience, and I think, there's a lot of good lessons in that one. Anyway, guys, voiceover Markee doesn't have much to say, so I'm going to hand you over to outro Markee. Alright guys, that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to tell me what you thought about it down in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, also don't forget to subscribe. It would really help out with my channel growth. And also, a huge shout out to my channel patrons and members. I just love you guys and thank you for supporting me on this journey. If you guys are new to the channel and you'd like to support me, links are down below for the Patreon, or you can click the join button next to subscribe if you'd like to become a channel member. Alright guys, that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.